Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Hey, welcome, folks, once again to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. Man, we got a good one for you today. We have captured one of the most elusive guys. I mean, if I talk about a coon hunter that moves around, we talk about hounds that move around good. Well, this guy moves around real good. He's everywhere. Unless you've been under a rock, if you're on social media at all, you see him in all kinds of different places and locations and wearing a lot of different hats. But I'm just really, really happy today to have Mr. Josh Michaelis in the house. How you doing, Josh?
I'm pretty good, Steve. Thanks for having me, bud.
Oh, brother, it's an honor for sure. And each last couple of years at Automotes, we've got to talk real briefly, but we really haven't got a chance to just settle down and have a good one. And I know you've been on with the DU boys before with Buddy and Jason, and where haven't you been, man? I mean, and you started this. Well, I want to talk about all that. I want to go back, but the big thing that we want to talk about today, and I think a lot of people have questions about it, is this new Elite Handlers series that you've got going. It's causing a lot of noise out there across the coonhound world, and we definitely want to talk about that as much as we can. But what I wanted to do with you, Josh, today a little bit, in case that guy's been under that rock, to tell them a little bit about who you are and all. Now, when I first heard about you, and of course, I'm not plugged in the way I was at one time in this sport, but it was when I interviewed Lane Denny after he had won the UKC World Hunt and with Emmy there, and he's talking about Josh Michaelis this and Josh that, and how much a strong influence you'd been on him and his sponsorship in your big show brand. So let's put me a little further back than that. Just give it a little background, and then let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I started off like a lot of these guys that, people see. We grew up in the Midwest. My grandfather coon hunted. We spent a vast majority of our childhood, both me and my brother, with our grandparents, and he got us into hound sports, and he got us into competition coon hunting. And at that time, we were, we didn't have a lot of money. We were what I would call now dirt poor, but
I
Grandpa,
remember my days.
yeah, Grandpa could scrape up enough money about 4 or 5 times a year to go to a $15, $10 UKC hunt. And he would pack us along, and sometimes we'd get to hunt in it. And as my brother got older, we were 6 years apart, me and my
Okay.
brother, almost 7. And
Jeremy.
yes, my brother Jeremy.
Right.
And as he got older, he got to start competing before I did, and there was always just this kind of, I want to beat big brother mentality. And I got into competition coon hunting too, and I've always loved hounds. And one thing led to another. I've always liked. I don't like the spotlight, which is contrary to popular belief. I really despise it. But I just seen where the sport was headed, and I wanted to highlight some of these guys because just as well as I do, Steve, some of these big time winners that nobody gets to interact with are really misunderstood. How they're portrayed on social media, especially. There's a big misunderstanding about these guys. Guys say it's just rich folks playing games, and that's not the case. Most of them started out just like I did. No heat in their house in the winter, and loved hunting hounds, and they made it to a high level. And I wanted to showcase those guys, and I started with that with Big Show Productions, and then that carried on to my position here at Joy Dog Food, and now on to the Elite Handler Series.
Exactly. Well, you definitely have the building blocks there and have done your homework. That's for, as we say, paid your dues.
Yeah.
And, that's when I get an opportunity to talk to young people about this sport, and they all want to jump right in it with both feet, and become a professional handler and all. And there's a lot of kids in the inner city that want to play in the NBA, Very few make it to that
Yeah.
point. And I've said this before, and it bears repeating that kids get an education, learn a trade or go to college, whichever you choose, get a good job, then you'll have the resources to
Yeah.
pursue your dreams in this sport, But if you don't have any money, you don't have a truck, you don't have a dog box,
Yeah.
you can't afford a decent dog, you're not
Yeah.
going to go very far, But, well, you certainly have, Josh. And, we'll give a shout out to your brother. He just picked up a nice piece of changes this past weekend at that Bear Pen Classic, I believe, right?
He did, and I don't like to brag on my brother very often because we still got that little competitive edge, I
Yeah.
guess. But people don't understand. That was a high entry fee hunt. I think it was around $7,500. It's an expensive hunt to attend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jeremy's done well, but people don't understand the hard work that he's gone through to get to the position that he's at in his life. And I am proud of him. I don't want him to
Sure.
I don't want to tell him face to face, but
Oh, I hear you.
I am proud of him because people don't realize the sacrifice that he's made and his family's made and
Yeah.
working construction all those years and building a successful business and all
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff. So yeah, I'm happy for him. Venus looked really good down there. I got to film one of her late rounds there on
Oh,
Friday
cool.
night. And so
Nice.
it was fun. Mark's got a beautiful place down there.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Well, the old saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
That's
So
right.
it's
right.
good to see good things coming to good people. I got to talk to Jeremy for the first time, really, to a degree at Automokes this year, and really enjoyed that experience. And of course, his Josie Wales dog has been making a lot of news and producing some nice pups. So I'm glad to see that. For him especially.
I am
Yeah.
too. I get a lot of questions about Josie, and I've still yet to hunt with him.
Really?
No,
Yeah.
I've never seen him go, but I've hunted with enough of Josie's pups and Hobo
Yeah.
and Laura
Yeah.
Lee and others. I know Josie's reproducing. He's one of the hottest stud dogs out there right now.
Yeah.
I've no
Yeah.
doubt if Jeremy's feeding him, he's probably pretty good.
Yeah. I'm sure he is. Yeah. Good looking sucker too.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. I guess we didn't peel back the layers on that onion too much. The Big Show Productions basically was a production company to cover the events. Is that correct?
We really just started out, because I had Big Show game calls, and
Right.
that stemmed from I love to waterfowl hunt too, Steve. Always have.
Oh, okay.
And I started making duck calls, and that transformed into making coon squallers because I was a coon hunter, and Big Show game calls took off at a level that I never dreamed when I first started doing it. To the point where, and me and Buddy and Jason both talked about this on that podcast too, to the point that I either had to quit what I was doing for a living and go all in, or I had to sell it.
Yeah.
And so I did end up selling it, but Big Show Productions was kind of a spin-off of that, and it was basically just a YouTube channel. It was me and my buddies hunting. It was me and Jed. I went down and I filmed with Lane because at that time I'd had the opportunity to hunt in some major events, and I'd won a few casts here and there. And I had some decent dogs, and I'd like to just take them. And I got to hunt with Ruby and Lane Denny and Jed Finley and Joe Manning and Cole McVeigh and all those guys. And I just filmed it. We started off filming it. It took off. It done well, and then Chris Powell seen it. And the next thing you know, I'm a guest on the Houndsman XP podcast, and the next thing you know, I'm hosting a segment on the Houndsman XP podcast. So it
The
just
truth. Yeah.
yes, it just kind of snowballed a little bit, and one thing led to another. And Joy Dog Food was listening to a podcast one day, and I got a call from them. And next thing you know, I'm not digging holes in the ground and all day I'm selling dog food. So it was
for a dog man, that's not a bad job, is
no, it was not a bad job. And Mr. Wade treats me great, and he's part of this new venture that we got going on. And I love my time at Joy Dog Food. Of course, I'm still employed there. The Elite Handler Series and Cane Stream Media have kind of taken a pretty good chunk out of things the last 6 months, but I still do what I can for Joy customers. And Joy's a sponsor of this new venture too, so that's helping. But the bottom line is I just really love coon hunting. And
Yeah.
I want people to understand that these guys that you only see in the magazine, or you only hear on podcasts, they love coon hunting just as much as we do, and
Yeah.
they're just folks. And that was the
Right.
goal behind a lot of this, and that's what we're going to continue to do, I think.
Well, that's great. And, you mentioned Chris Powell. He and I started the Houndsman XP podcast together. And Chris, my wheelhouse has always been coon hunting, although I
Mhm.
grew up in the home of a bear hunter and I loved that too. But coon hunting was it for me. And so, Chris and I had a little bit of different ideas of which way to go,
Mhm.
with it. And, nothing negative to say at all about Chris. I think he does a great job, and that's been a great venture for him. But coon hunting was my thing,
Right.
and that's where my experience was, and everybody's heard my story way too many times. But that's the way things built for with me. Start out a local club, then a breed association, and then an acquaintance with Fred Miller at UKC, and a field rep job, and then ultimately a field ops job in the home office, and
Mhm.
then to PKC, then to AKC, and then first thing you know, you turn around twice and you're old. I just had a text conversation with Steve Mackey, one of the guys over there in your
Yep.
neighborhood, kind of,
Yep.
and we're talking about our aches and pains and how and Steve's saying, man, he's finally decided he's going to have to slow down on the competition and just maybe start young dogs and that
Yep.
sort of thing. So it comes in phases, but it sneaks up on you really quick. But it is encouraging and rewarding for me to see young people like you get into the sport and really get into it and realize, use your creativity and do some things. And
Yep.
not only is it something that you enjoy, but it helps a lot of people enjoy the sport a lot more. And that's what I appreciate about you, Josh, is that you're out there giving us new and better things to think about and games to play and all, to support these coon hounds, this addiction that we
Yeah.
have. Well, let's talk about this Elite Handler series, unless I've missed something on the way. If we need to build up more to it, that's fine. Do that too, but tell us about it.
Um, it's something I've had in my mind's eye for a long time, and bringing it to fruition, I knew was always going to be pretty difficult because while it's not a radical idea, it's not a new idea. It is novel in the coon hunting world and dog sports in general. I mean, I've tried to explain over the last couple weeks since we've made the announcement. Now we've been working on this for a lot longer than people think. This has been in the works for quite a while. There's a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross, but um, it's not a kennel club, and I've tried to say that and express that as much as possible. And unfortunately, right now, it's not open to just anybody competing in it. And that is not to knock all the people that want to compete in this format, but it's more so to not take away from the kennel clubs that we already have.
Hmm.
Um, UKC, PKC, Pro Sport, ACHA, AKC, all these, they do such a fantastic job. And they are integral and super important to our sport and what we do. I
True.
realize that. And I also realize there are way too many events. Um, and some of the
Mhm.
prestige is kind of going away with some of these hunts. And so the trick was, let's get an organization that we can highlight the handlers, highlight the dogs, maybe bring the sport of hunting with hounds and other working dogs more mainstream, more into the suburban public, urban public, even.
Mhm.
And we have to do that without taking entries away from these other kennel clubs because
Yeah.
right now it's a pretty small pie, and all these kennel clubs are fighting for their piece of it.
Mhm.
Our goal is not to get a piece of that pie; it's to make it bigger for everybody. We want more exposure, more of a mainstream audience, And so to do that, we had to come up with a format that was good for television, was good for video, and so we had to come up with our own promotion because we had to be able to build an event around or to build the event around the coverage instead of trying to wrap the coverage around the event. That was the only way that we knew how to do it. Cane Stream Media actually came about first. I wanted to get a media company with some funding. Now that I'm in a better situation in my life than I was when I started Big Show Productions, and I have partners that are willing to take a chance on me, I have the means to do something a little bit more. And
Good.
so we started at Cane Stream Media in the idea that we wanted to cover all these events better, UKC, PKC, Pro Sport, etc., and bring it into more homes and bring it into more viewership. But to do that, we also had to have something where we could get our feet wet. And the Elite Handler Series is it. I mean, that's where we're going to make our debut for Cane Stream. And we're going to try to expand that into other working dogs too, because that's going to be important. That's going to be something where a retriever guy is going to get on one of our social media platforms or one of our platforms, period, and be like, "What's this coon hunting stuff? What are these? What do you mean these guys are hunting for $100,000?"
Yeah,
You
really.
know, and so that was kind of the basis of it. And then it's kind of mirrored after a fight promotion because this is head to head. These are head to head events in all these working dog sports, and so we did kind of try to emulate what's been done in other organizations, and that's the part that I think people are getting confused. I think that's where they're struggling to understand.
So I can reasonably assume we're not going to actually have any UFC bouts
No,
as
but I
part
bet that would
as
sell.
part of this. Huh?
I bet that would sell. An MMA
Yeah.
match between some of these handlers, I think would probably sell big.
Yeah, I could turn back the pages over the
Yeah.
years.
There's been a few of them that a lot of people don't know about. They've already had.
Oh man, that's right. One of the funniest ones I ever heard was back when I first went to UKC. Now, folks, this is way back in the old days. Something like this would never happen at a competition coon hunt today. But the guy said a guy came in the front door with a gun,
Mm.
and he was shooting,
Mhm.
and I don't know what is that my phone doing
I believe
that?
that's yours. It ain't mine, Steve.
Oh my gosh, what the heck is wrong with it? He said a guy came in the back door with a gun, and he said, I looked around, the only place to go was up the fireplace.
It'd be a safe place.
So see, I went up that chimney like a squirrel.
Like Santa Claus on his way out.
That's right. That's right. Well, things have tamed down
Yeah.
quite considerably in our sport, and that's kudos to the handlers out there. They really do conduct themselves
Yeah.
in a professional way, and I'm proud of that, to see that with our guys for sure. Well, down through the years, I thought of a lot of things that I look back on them. They weren't bad ideas, and
Yep.
they were fairly innovative for their day. But I really wasn't into the money hunt thing until Larry Meeks hired me to come to PKC, and he said, we want to develop a bench show program
Yeah.
that kind of spins off of our night hunt program. So that was really my first introduction to figuring up, award charts and how to pay out the money and all that. And one of the things I learned at PKC, and I think it really helped me in my career along this, that I learned that money has to be paid.
Yep.
It has to be paid to the dogs. Whether they had a good night or a bad night, somebody was a winner.
Yeah.
And that was an alien concept to me, having come out of UKC, because we, it was plus points or die, there. So that's been, but anyway, that's a rabbit path that I'm probably don't need to go down. But, well, Okay, things are moving so fast for me, especially for an old guy like me. I'm 77 years old now. I probably should, be just uh, happy with the rocking chair and the passenger seat on a side by side with the real coon hunter, which is pretty much what I do nowadays. But I still like to keep my hand in. I still find it very interesting. And when a new program like this comes along, I'm like, yeah, man, that's cool.
You know,
And I think this is cool. From what I'm seeing about this, tell us a little bit more about how this Elite Handler Series works.
one of the big misconceptions we have is our roster, because we came out with our roster a couple weeks ago, and what our roster consists of is we can only have so many hunters, because every time someone signs with us, we got to guarantee them at least one hunt per year. And so in 2024, every one of them guys are going to get an exhibition hunt. Now, these exhibition hunts are zero entry fee. There is a cash prize to the winner, and they're going to be head to head and filmed for the cameras, of course, and all that stuff. And we do have some good sponsorship lined up. But with the roster, we put it out and we want discussion. We want to put this stuff on social media and get that discussion and get that
Mhm.
buzz going. So far, so good. But
Well, you run the risk when you do that,
yeah,
but that transparency is respected,
yes,
Josh.
yeah,
It
and we
is.
have to. And I realize that I am technically the face of this organization right now. It is kind of my brainchild, but I'm not the only one involved. We got a lot of people involved and a lot of people working on this, and our roster was not taken lightly. There were handlers that we reached out to that declined. Not very many, but a few. Um, there were handlers that we just could not get to before our roster was full. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, you're not, when you can only have 45 or 50 guys on your roster, you're going to leave some people out. There are a lot of good houndsmen out there, and they're not all at $6,500 hunts, and they're not all winning world hunts. There's a
Mhm.
lot of good handlers, good dogmen, and I did the best that I could in filling a roster full of guys that I know are good dogmen and guys that I know
Mhm.
people are going to want to watch, and that's the criteria. And
Yeah.
did we leave some folks out? You betcha. There was no way around it. We had to, because we don't have the facilities, the manpower, and all that stuff to give 150 handlers 1 to 2 hunts a year.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so
Understood.
yeah,
Sure.
our roster is our roster, but that's going to change. Uh, say we get a guy in the bottom 30 and he goes 0-2, we're going to have to let him go. We're going to have to cut him,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we're going to pick somebody else up. And it's going to be somebody that we're watching. We're keeping our eye on these other kennel clubs. We know who's winning in PKC, and we know who's winning state races, and we know who's winning UKC hunts. And, pro sport, I'm at every event. I know who's there. I know what kind of dogs they're packing and what kind of dog men they are. We're gonna keep our eye open, and we're gonna fill that roster spot with someone that we cut. We're gonna give up and comers, young kids, guys that don't have the chance to go to all these major events. And you'll see some on our list now. I was talking about Chris Saunders earlier. You don't see Chris Saunders at a bunch of $6,500 hunts or pro sport hunts or something like that. But we know what kind of dog man he is.
You better believe he is.
And so he made the roster, and there's
Yeah.
guys like him on there, and they're going to be hard to beat. Are they going to start at the bottom of the rankings? Yep. Are they going to win a couple and move up, maybe into the top 10, maybe to compete for a world championship? You bet. All you got to do is win.
So I really haven't looked into this the way I should have. I took a trip up north, did a little hunting, it's that time of year when people are busy with other things.
Yeah.
So I really am coming into this a little bit ignorant, a lot ignorant, actually. But there's going to be like a bracket is it like a tournament deal that,
We
uh,
we are going to hold some tournaments. We're
okay.
looking at 4, but
Hmm.
there's we're not just going to take the top 8, because they're going to be 8 dog tournaments. And those will be the
Okay.
only hunts we have with an entry fee. Those hunts
Mhm.
will be 100% payback. We don't take a dime. But they will be an entry fee on those. But a lot of those are going to be because Steve, what people don't realize is we're new at this too.
Sure.
We're going to have to get guys that I know are reliable, guys that I know will be there, and guys that I know I'm going to watch. And that's really for our first tournament or two is what it's going to take is
Right.
guys that I know I can count on because we can't publicize this. We can't build this up to make people watch it. And then 2 of our 8 just decide they don't want to be there that day.
Right.
You
Well,
know?
let me ask you this. I'm going to interrupt you here.
Yeah, you're fine.
All right. Now, in order to be considered as an elite handler, is there an initiation fee or whatever that I have to pay to get into the mix?
Nope, there is no fee. That is basically me or someone from the EHS contacting you and say, "Hey, are you interested in
Gotcha.
competing
Okay.
in the Elite Handler Series?" And
I
what we do
got you.
for those hunters is we'll guarantee them at least one hunt
I
their
got
first
you.
year. And a
Okay.
lot of them is going to be just head-to-head exhibitions where they get paid to win. There's no entry fee. We're going to sponsor that, and then that just gives them the ability. We've got some good matchups made already.
Hmm.
Joe Manning versus Mark Gilmore, Jesse Lively versus Casey Dooley. Some really good hunters coming up, and
Yeah.
we get a non-biased judge. We get them in a neutral location. I believe Billy Bell and Michael Ward are under a verbal agreement right now too. So we've got a lot of good
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
coming up, and
Yeah.
that's just going to give those guys that are outside the top 10 a chance to move up and get in that top 10 because what we're going to do is right now Strickland's in the number 1 spot.
Yep.
And so the first hunt that Strickland has, whoever we book him with, may be the winner between Billy and Michael Ward. That will be for the interim Elite Handler Series Championship. And then the big belt, which we do have a championship belt in the whole
Yeah, I
works.
saw that on.
Yeah.
That's
The big belt will be
that's a first for coon
Yep.
hunting.
Then the big
Yeah.
belt will be given away the first time Strickland defends his title. That'll be our world champion. And then every time that world champion defends his title, he's going to get another belt. If he gets it taken from him, the winner's going to get a belt. They'll be our world champion. No different than boxing, mixed martial arts, stuff like that.
Okay, well, again, here my ignorance is showing. The media, you reached out to media
Yep.
to ask them for a ranking.
Right.
And then I assume that you took all of those and would you average them out or
Yep.
whatever, and then combine that with your own position, I would think.
Actually,
Yeah.
I did not factor in my own position.
Okay.
As
So,
the matchmaker and as the promoter, I felt it was better off to leave it in outside hands. And I took there's more coon hunting media than people think. And so
imagine.
I
Yeah,
took all those averages, and that was our initial top 10. And every time there's a hunt, we're going to redo it, and we're going to get
that's cool.
after this first initial ranking. It don't matter if someone goes through and wins 50 casts in PKC in a row; they can't advance unless they're winning an Elite Handler Series hunt. The only way to move up in the rankings is your record. If you're 1-0, 2-0, and then 3-0, you're on a 3-hunt win streak. You're moving up.
Yeah. Okay, all good stuff, really, for sure. Do you have you publicly announced who your partners are in this venture, or is this something that you've got silent partners, or is
We've
that
got some
something?
silent partners, and then of
Okay,
course Wade Grashwitz with Joy Dog Food is also
okay,
part owner of this as well. And
all right,
it is a separate entity. Joy Dog Food does sponsor these events right now, but we're a business. We're just going
sure.
to be like anything else. If some other dog food company comes in and wants to write a bigger check than Joy Dog Food, maybe we'll take it. Maybe we won't. We don't know.
Sure.
We're going to have to see how this goes first. There's a
Well,
lot. There's still a lot of questions. There's still a lot to work out.
well, you need leadership, and that's you. And you're an entrepreneur. You're a guy that likes to try new things, and that's what you got to have, and some things work, some things don't. The old guy that taught me how to sell back in the 10-year career I had before dogs, he said, it's like throwing cow manure on the barn wall, Steve. The more you throw, the more it'll stick, So you got to put this stuff out there, and anything in my view that brings a positive attention to
Yes.
the sport, is a good thing. And years ago, I was privileged to sit in front of the cameras with the ESPN2 over at Clarksville, Arkansas, at the nightlight hunt there when I was
Yeah.
with PKC, and that'll show those shows. There were two of them. They've been. I think you could probably still find them on YouTube somewhere, But that was, and we got to talk about coon hunting and how, at that time it was Purina that was kind of, in the forefront, and they did a survey and determined that organized competitive coon hunting was the largest sporting dog activity in the country.
Yeah.
Larger than retrievers or beagles or bird dogs or any of that stuff, So this is good, man. I can't wait to see some of these head-to-head matchups. That's tailor made for my lifestyle.
And the
But
rule set is different. It takes, I know it's the Elite Handler Series, but when we're in a position where there's no panel, there's no appeals, there's no nothing, the handler is just going to have to take what the judge gives him, which is no different than an umpire in a baseball game or a
yeah,
referee in a boxing match or something like that. And so we had to tailor make the rules for our events. And I sat down, I ran those rules through our judges. We have some of the best judges on the planet lined up to judge these hunts. You look at Brad Durham and Mason Bush and
mm,
Tracy Bailey and others, Jason Klom. We got guys that are well respected, very honest, very unbiased, and they're going to get paid too. These
yeah,
judges are going to get paid good money, and that's going to be an integral part to making sure this goes off without a hitch. Because the minute this looks like a clown show is the minute that it fails, and so we have to do this
yeah,
properly.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know that, Josh, and the public's going to be expecting that of you, and but I think also our sport. I've been amazed over the years how sometimes we can sit back, especially since social media came along, and be armchair quarterbacks and
Mhm.
throw these opinions right and left and all. But overall, people are pretty forgiving. They understand, that
Well,
things happen.
you wouldn't know it by my inbox right now.
But think about throwing, well, in the usual scenario, 4 hounds out into the
Mhm.
dark of the night and not expect some weird things to
Yeah.
happen along the way. It's being pretty naive, I guess. But
One of the things that we looked at too is the head-to-head format and the struggles that people are having to find hunting land.
mm,
And 2 dogs are better than 4.
oh, yeah.
We're able to have more dog work in a shorter amount of time with just 2 dogs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that we can do in a head-to-head format,
Mm,
and
yeah.
we hope that eventually, because we're working on documentaries, we're working on houndman spotlights, where we can just sit down with an entertaining character like Kurt Ehring and do an 8-hour episode on him.
8 hours of Kurt? Whoa,
Imagine
I
it.
don't
Just
know.
imagine it. And, just
I
because
love Kurt, by the
yeah,
way.
everybody does. Sometimes I wonder why, but everybody does.
Yeah.
But, we want people's because these houndsmen are gonna watch. I know they are. But we want their wives to be
Mm-hmm.
entertained, and then
Mm-hmm.
we want their wives to tell somebody at the hair shop, and then we want
Mm.
somebody that has no idea what we're doing out there to come in and
Mhm.
tune in for the entertainment. And then the
Yeah.
next time that my dog is in their backyard because it went a direction that it wasn't supposed to, and they see me
Mhm.
walking up on their doorstep with a coon light and with my chaps on and my vest, they don't call the law. They see, "Oh, that I've
Mm.
seen that. I see what those guys are doing. They're coon hunters. I
Exactly.
get it." And
Yep.
that's the end goal, and that's I know it's a long ways away, but that's really what we had in mind when we started all this.
Well, there's an old saying in religious circles that we're the only Bible that some people will read.
Yeah.
It applies to our sport for sure. We may be the only coon hunter that someone will meet and how we
Right.
conduct ourselves and so forth. Yes, you're right, to be able to see that on TV and say, yeah, I saw that. That's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
know what you're doing. Out there, yeah, go ahead and hunt my back 40.
Right.
I'd be glad for you to take care of that coon problem for me, or whatever the spinoffs are.
Yeah.
All good stuff. Really
And how
good.
people conduct themselves is one of the limiting factors on who we sign. I mean, I'm going to be honest. We
Mhm.
can't. Some of it's entertaining, and I get it, and I know viewership may be better with one guy over the other, but also conduct is important, and we got to have it, especially here at the get go before we get this thing
Mhm.
established.
For sure. For sure. Well, this concept of one-on-one is a great, great concept. And it was always interesting down through the years at the World Hunts and all
Hmm.
when we could have head-to-head casts
Yeah.
when the numbers worked out, to where maybe we had 8 dogs and we wanted a final 4.
Right.
So we ran them head-to-head, and that was always, a fun time. And people like that. And from a
Yeah.
spectator's point of view, I think it's a win situation because it gets pretty confusing,
Yeah.
And I've sat and watched a lot of the play-by-plays,
Hmm.
the video play-by-plays, and you spend a lot of time sitting there in front of the screen looking at a bunch of coon hunters' backsides as they're
Yeah.
walking,
Yeah.
a mile to this one, a mile to that one. So all that, yeah. Well, Major League Baseball has proven by putting these pitch clocks and all
Yep.
this stuff on there, it's improved the game.
Yep.
I was a skeptic myself, but hey, it's working. So,
And
hey.
I do. I mean, we're gonna do live feeds of hunts. But I've always been a proponent of editing out that mile walk. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Nobody
Mm-hmm.
wants to see us walk for 30 minutes. I mean,
Right.
that does not make for entertaining television. And
No.
so I've always been a proponent of good edited, honest footage, and that's what we're going to go with on the most part with this. But we're still going to cover traditional kennel clubs live. We're gonna instead of doing it through Joy Dog Food, we'll do it through Cane Stream. But
Mm-hmm.
we support them. Roger Dale and Alan and Trevor and Greg and Scott, they're all still our friends. They're all,
Oh yeah.
we want to make
Absolutely.
sure and support them as well and be able to bring that to the hunters that want to watch it as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's very important, I think, Josh, that you maintain those relationships with those guys,
Yeah.
and they're the ones that are really the glue that's holding this sport together.
Yeah.
Performance dogs require uh, those records
Hmm.
and that information
And that
and
pedigree.
so forth. That pedigree,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so, yeah, kudos to those guys. I just happen to be a guy that kind of has a special place in my heart for them because I know what they go through,
Yeah.
So, yeah, real good stuff. Well, what about Josh's personal hunting exploits? Are you doing any hunting at all
I've been
right now,
hunting
or
pretty
too
hard.
busy?
Uh, I've
Yeah.
got I've got Jace, of course, who competes in the youth hunts, and
Yeah.
we've got an entry down to Tennessee to the 4-wheeler hunt, and so
Oh,
I'm
that's
doing my
cool.
best to keep his dog ready and
Yeah.
do all that stuff for him because
How old is he now?
he's 12. He'll be 13 in
Oh, okay.
February,
Great age.
and
Yeah.
so my stepdaughter and my daughter both love to coon hunt too. They both got a dog. They're going to be competing in the youth events next year.
That's great.
So myself competing, I've taken a huge step back. The
Mm,
kids are kind of taking that place for me, but there's nothing that I love more than starting young dogs, Steve. If it was up to
mm.
me, that's what I would do for a living, but it's not a very good living. I've also got 2 kids
Well,
to pay for, so
yeah, nothing. I was so fortunate to actually have a salaried job all
Yeah.
those years that took me out to coon hunts,
Right.
and that just doesn't happen very often. And I was so blessed with that. I tried every time I stood, not every time, but many times when I stood in front of a group of coon hunters to say, thank you guys,
hmm
because of you guys sitting out there, I'm able to make a living and do
Yeah.
something that I enjoy so very much. So
And that's
it's,
important. That's
yeah.
important for me to take a look back every now and then, about once a week when my phone's blowing up and these hunters are mad at me or
Mm,
something. I've got to think about how blessed that I am because all I do, Steve, is coon hunt and film coon hunts, and I get to
hmm
go out with the absolute best of the best
There you
almost
go.
every weekend. I
There
get to
you
see
go.
these great dogs and these great handlers
hmm
every weekend, and I get paid to do it. I'm as lucky a guy as there is.
Well, and that translates in a lot of areas. I was a kid, believe it or not, when I was a kid, Sears and Roebuck Catalog had dogs for sale.
Yeah,
They had a whole page of dogs that were like little postage stamp
yeah,
pictures of the different breeds. I've been just absolutely enamored with dogs since ever since I can remember.
me
And
too.
my dad, he bred that in me because he
Mhm.
was the same way as a kid. Uh, you know, but just recently, Alan and Trevor called me. My wife and I were out in the car and invited me to come down to the Winter Classic in Batesville and participate in the judging of the top 10 show dogs.
Yeah,
Well, a lot when I was at PKC, some of the hardcore hunters, they said, you're wasting this money on these show dogs. You need to put that back into the youth program or this or
yeah,
that. But that's a great gateway for kids. It's a great
yeah,
gateway for in fact, the women have basically taken over that
yeah,
sport, now. I mean, there's some guys like Dave Myers there in Pennsylvania and a
yeah,
few of them that are still, and my old buddy Lee Kearns. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that is an honor for me and I'm looking forward to it just to be able to see all those gorgeous dogs
yeah,
up close and personal, run my hand
yeah,
across them and watch them as they move around the rings. It's just, it's a, I can't describe it, but it's something that's rooted so deeply in me. And to be able to have a lifetime of association with coon dogs and coon hunters is beyond belief
yeah.
for me, really. And I know you feel that too, Josh,
I do.
because, yeah, for
I've got
sure.
great respect for anybody who takes time to be really good at their craft. I don't care if
Mm-hmm.
it's a sport or a trade or whatever. I've always just been enthralled by greatness. When I look at the Kobe Bryants and the Tom Brady's and the
Oh,
Michael
yeah.
Jordans and then you get into these handlers and you look at the Stricklands and the Weeds and the guys. John Strickland doesn't need to go to a coon hunt to make money.
No,
You
no,
know, he does it
no.
because he wants to be really good at his craft, and some
Yeah.
of these guys are just really good, and that transfers into the show dog world too. I mean, these
Oh, yeah,
men and ladies and
absolutely.
kids and everything, and
Hmm.
now that you mention that, we are gonna maybe do some bench show stuff too.
Awesome.
We've been
Awesome.
talking about that as well, but there's so many cool dogs, and there's so many cool dog sports, and we are just starting with what we know. But I can't personally wait to get into the retrievers and the
Oh,
pointing dogs
man.
and the squirrel dogs and the beagles and all these wonderful dogs because they're amazing.
Well, you'll love it because, I was at UKC when we started the hunting beagle program. I was at
Mhm.
UKC when we started the hunting retriever club, HRC, and the squirrel dog program and all those things. And to see those, and some of them did better than others, but I
Yeah,
look at what Alan and those guys have done with that hunting beagle program now. I mean,
yeah,
they got an awesome program rocking there, and it's great. But and then back to what we're saying there, you've got Cable, his wife Angie. She's very much into the show dogs and
yeah,
does very very. And there's a whole family,
yep.
that's just wrapped up in coon dogs. And their son Jackson, he's coming right along
Oh,
in
yeah,
their footsteps.
yeah. I love
And to
Jack.
me,
He's a
that's
trip.
just isn't he a great
Yeah,
kid? It's just awesome, to see that happening, and that's just one family. I can think of the Champs over in West Virginia. I'm going to get in trouble. I better not start naming them, but anyway, it's a big world out there,
Yeah.
and man, I'm excited about what's going to happen. You and I spar a little bit, and it's all in fun
Oh yeah.
about when was the golden age of
Yep.
coon hunting, and I'm basing mine more on numbers, and on and the old friendships that I had down through the years. But it's an exciting time for coon hunting right now. It really is.
We're hoping that, because I do agree with you about the numbers. What people don't understand, my graduating class had 18 kids in it. I
Mm.
graduated in a class of 18, which was a big for our school.
Mm.
And 6 of us had coon hounds.
Is that right?
Yes, we had 6 kids with coon hounds, and the class above me had 2 or 3 kids with coon hounds. 2 classes above me had 4 or 5 kids with coon hounds. Everybody had a coon hound. Ravenna, the
Mm.
little town where I live, at one time there were more coon hounds than people. I live a half mile outside of a town that probably used to have. You think of Kenny Francis and Lloyd
Mm.
Wilson
Mm.
and Irvin Taff and all them guys. They all lived right there in that town.
I got you.
And now it's down to just me and Ed Poe has hounds here just north of me, and Mike Noe, about 4 miles north of me, has hounds. There's still a lot of coon hunters here, but not like it was. And so I do
Right.
agree with the numbers. And so just imagine if we can get the publicity that we have now in the events that we have now with the numbers that we had in the early 90s.
Oh my.
That's the
Mm.
goal. That's the goal, is to
Yeah.
get these kids to say, I want a coon dog. I want to go compete for this. I want to be in the elite handler series, or I want to go hunt pro sport, or I just want to go out and see good dogs, or see poor dogs, or just be out in the woods at night. That's what we
Exactly.
want. If we can get those numbers up and we can get the coverage that we have and the events that we have, we could go and do anything.
Well, that's what I've discovered with this podcasting gig, is that so many people get contact messages and so forth from, I'm new at this, but I'm not a kid, but
Yeah.
I found it interesting. Or I did it when I was real young. Now my kids are grown up. We got through ball, we got through all the things, and now I want to go back. I want to get a hound. Where do I
Yeah.
go? And so yeah, it's just such a good sport. It's a wholesome sport.
Yeah.
And I know there are people who have tried to taint it over the years, but overall, it's good people doing good things, with
Yeah.
some good animals, and
Yes.
I'm just really so proud to have been able to be a part of it. But, well, okay. Back to this Elite Handler
Mhm.
series. All right. Right now, going forward, what's happening? What's next? What to look for when we're out here? We want to know as much as we can. We want to be a fan.
Yep.
What's going on?
The first thing you need to do is go to Cane Stream Media on YouTube.
Okay. That's
Like and subscribe.
CANE, a
CANE.
play on mainstream,
Yes.
I assume. Yeah.
Well, cane is the Corsican word for dog,
Yeah.
and we are streaming a lot of stuff. And so we actually tried to go with the Working Dog Network, but the lawyers said no. Yeah, that's not a
Uh,
good idea. There's a lot of working dog this and working dog that. We could run
yeah.
into some copyright stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so we went with Cane Stream Media. All the Elite Handler Series coverage will be on there, probably starting the first week of December. We'll have our first head-to-head hunt.
And that'll be on Facebook.
That'll be on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube, excuse
Yes.
me.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you go to Cane Stream Media on YouTube, Cane Stream is one word.
Okay.
Like, subscribe. We've already got some stuff on there. We posted a few little odds and ends of the Mark Hall and a few things like that. And we're going to try to keep at least 2 uploads a week on that. It's nothing special, but something that's going to entertain people. And then we're going to start airing our first exhibitions the first week of December. All the exhibitions will be free of charge, and people can just go on there and watch them and thank our sponsors. Our sponsors will be listed, because without those sponsors, we have no funds to do any of this.
Right.
And so that's important too. We still have not filled all our sponsor spots for the first hunt, but we also haven't advertised it yet. The sponsor
Okay.
spots that we have filled have been just people contacting me and say, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I want to sponsor this." And so we
So
spot.
I assume that at some point down the line there will be a subscription to
There will be
this.
a
Yes,
subscription to some events. We're still going to
sure.
have a lot of free footage,
Okay.
but to have these events the way we want to have them, and it's no different than you have a Netflix subscription every month,
Any
or
anything.
yes, and so
Yeah.
there will be a subscription price, and some of the hunts will be pay per view, but still, we're going to have enough free content to keep people excited, and they're going to want to watch some of this stuff, and the cost will be pretty minimal to the viewer. I mean,
Exactly.
we're not going to charge them an arm and a leg for this. We're going to try to cover our costs the first year,
Sure.
and we're going to try not to lose too much. We've got
Well, I always, I think people probably get tired of me saying things like that and get angry with me, even to a degree. But I've always said that coon hunters think there's a Santa Claus that just drops all the stuff
yeah,
down the chimney to
yeah,
us. No, it costs the
yeah,
logistics,
yeah,
to bring this stuff to our homes.
yeah,
We don't think twice about paying for a Netflix or a YouTube or a Hulu
yeah.
subscription so we can stream the shows we want. This is our life. This is our sport. This is what we love. We're going to have to pay a little bit to get it. But my gosh, what would we rather be doing with our money? Really?
It'll cost less than a beer at the Alabama LSU game.
I'm sure. Well, think
Because
about
those,
the
I
guy
think
that,
those are about $20.
oh, it's crazy. Well, think about the guy that goes out and shoots around the golf.
Yeah,
My neighbors, I live in a neighborhood. We used to have a golf course right here in the community, but the neighbors play golf, and where they go out there and pay for green fees,
yep,
just to shoot 18, and
yep.
it's yeah. Well, I'm a fan already. Haven't even seen any of it, but I like everything I'm hearing about it, and I want to be ringside when this stuff starts happening for
We're gonna
sure.
need all the help we can get, Mr. Steve.
Well,
You be careful
well,
what you wish for. We may have you on the payroll here before long, and trust me, it won't be
well,
much.
Uh, well, I'm used to that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
there you go.
My podcasts are on W Hunting
Yeah,
Supply. They pay me in dog collars,
there you go. There
and
you
I
go.
don't even have a dog here at the house. Well, we do have a dachshund, but
Yeah,
he's really not a dog. He's people. Just ask Alice; she'll tell you that.
yeah.
Okay, so we've heard a little bit about your kids. They're involved in the sport.
Mhm.
That's awesome. You obviously have an understanding wife, and I see the pictures on Facebook. You have a beautiful family, um, and at your age, the world is your oyster, as they say, young man. And I'm a big fan, Josh, and I really look forward to seeing all this happening. What about with Joy? Anything to report about Joy or whatever?
Joy is doing great. They're such a wonderful company that is so uh, they're just tied into coon hunting like no other dog food. I mean, people don't understand that Wade's a coon hunter. The guy that owns Joy Dog Food does nothing. Every morning he calls me and wants to know how my dogs look last night. He don't ask about
That's
how much
awesome.
dog food I sold or anything like that. But Joy is also. I do want to mention this. We went ahead and got an entry to the 4-wheeler hunt as a
Hmm.
company, and we are going to pay all expenses paid for a kid and his parent to go to the 4-wheeler hunt in Tennessee and compete in that. It's an essay contest. And so if you go to the
Cool.
Joy Facebook page, there's an essay contest right there, and Joy is going to they've got a panel there in the office that's going to pick the best essay, and they don't know who wrote it. They're going to take all the names off the essays and they're going to give it to that panel, and they're going to read them all. And they're going to pick some lucky kid to have an all expense paid trip to the 4-wheeler hunt and maybe go win a brand new 4-wheeler for him and his family. And that's just the kind of stuff we like doing, and we like giving
Awesome
back.
stuff.
But
Yeah.
we can't do that without all of our amazing customers.
Right.
Joy has
Right.
one of the best customer bases on the planet, and I'm very proud of them supporting us the way they do,
Yeah.
because none of this would be possible without that.
Well, I remember so well my PKC days when Joy was so involved in the youth program there, and I talk to friends like a young man that I met back during those days, and he and I have remained friends despite a great difference in age, and that's Rusty Jones.
Yeah.
And Rusty came up through that program, and that was just such I enjoyed working with the elder Chip Koser, and didn't know his dad, but knew who he was. But Chip was a hoot. We had so many fun times at Aurora back during those days. And Mike Harper, I don't know if you ever met Mike or not.
I did not get the chance to meet
Mike was a jewel,
Yeah.
a funny guy. Oh, man, did we have some great times with those guys. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's coon hunting and joy are intertwined for sure. And it's good to have those deeper pockets out there because we need them, you know, when chips are down.
I agree.
Well, Josh, we've been at it about 55 minutes. I was going to try to milk an hour out of you, out of your busy schedule, but we've gotten pretty close. Is there anything we haven't talked about that we should have?
I'm sure there is. Nothing comes to mind right now, but I know every time I get off one of these, I'm like, oh, I should have said this, or oh, we forgot to talk about that, but I can't think of anything just directly anyway.
Well, all you got to do is send me a little messenger and say, hey, I'm going to come back on and talk about this or that. We're getting, I think the podcasts out there, I don't know if you're seeing this on your end, but podcasts, were real new and innovative, and everybody was all gung-ho about podcasts. Now there's several, so it's kind of, the listenership is kind of leveled out somewhat. It's maybe not as spectacular as it was at one time, but we're still getting real good numbers on this program, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm very grateful for my friends, Buddy Woodbury out at and Jason Doobie out at W Hunting Supply. You know those guys.
Oh, yeah.
You know what good guys they are. And I'm very grateful for them for the opportunity to do this every week, and appreciate all the listeners that do take time, maybe heading to work. This time of year, most people are hunting, which is good for them. And I see the pictures of the big bucks and the squirrels, tailgate full of squirrel tails and all that stuff. And it's just a great community to be a part of.
Agreed.
Josh Michaelis, Cane Stream Media,
yes, sir.
Elite Handlers Series. Awesome new stuff for coon hunters, no matter whether you're young, old, or has-beens like me. Look them up on YouTube. Once again, Cane Stream Media. Josh, thanks so much for taking the time today to visit with me. I always enjoy the experience, and I hope you have a great week, and nothing but the best for your new venture.
Thank you, Steve. God bless.
God bless you, brother. Okay, folks, that's it for this episode of Gone to the Dogs podcast. If anyone asks you, where's Steve Fielder hanging out these days, tell him he's out there in northwest Missouri trying to catch up with Josh Michaelis, maybe go coon hunting. He's gone to the dogs.